Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and this is April the 8th. It is 2:33, and this is the Housing and Real Property Subcommittee. We're going to be discussing two bills, and both are the cross files of each other. Let us have our discussion based upon one of them, and then we can make sure that both at the end of our discussion match each other. So let's discuss HB. Hang on a second here. Yeah, we'll discuss. We'll talk off of the House bill, HB 877, and this is a bill relevant to work group on adaptive reuse for vacant commercial spaces. And this was a bill that came out of, as indicated, a work group. And the chair of the work group on the House side is Delegate Valentino Smith. The chair of the work group on the Senate side is Senator Mary Washington. Matthew, you want to give us a little bit of information on the bill, please?
Sure. So the bill establishes the work group on adaptive reuse of vacant commercial spaces. The Department of Housing and Community Development would provide staff for this work group. And then by November 30th, 2021, the work group will report its findings and recommendations to the Governor and the General Assembly. Generally, the work group must study the feasibility and limitations of converting vacant or underutilized commercial spaces into residential or mixed-use residential and commercial spaces in order to increase the availability of affordable housing stock in the state. And there are a number of other duties with which the work group is tasked. I can go into those, but they're all centered around this idea of how to convert underutilized commercial spaces into
housing. I think it's a very good idea now because the commercial space are going to be becoming more and more vacant because of the pandemic. Let us first start with, I'll get to you in a minute, Delegate Lehman. There are a couple of amendments, and let me start by discussing the amendments, if you don't mind, Matthew, and then Delegate Lehman will get to you at that point. Yeah. Matthew, the amendments, please.
Okay. So
and to recap again, we're discussing HB 877, but everything we're discussing also applies to the Senate bill as well, okay? So go ahead, Matthew.
Okay, so right now, the Senate bill has, the House bill 877, the amendment you received would add members representing several industry groups that would be likely involved in these decisions, or their industries would be touched by the conversion of these commercial spaces into residential spaces. There's certainly testimony at the hearing in the House on the need for representation of architects, which were included by amendment, representative of residential real estate developer, veterans rights organizations, nonprofit organizations specializing in rapid rehousing, and then financial institution, representative of an organization representing banking institutions that operate in the state. So the amendments just add members to this work group. Go ahead.
So Delegate Lehman, is your question to the amendment or to the bill? Matthew, are you complete? I didn't mean to cut you off, I'm sorry.
All I was gonna say is that the Senate bill has been amended to add these members already. So effectively, effectively this amendment would conform to the Senate bill.
Okay, DFH, you're muted.
So Matt, would it, or I guess to the chair, if I wanted to make, if I wanted to add a member, would now be the time to do it, or will that mess up the bill?
If you were to add a member, it would, I would imagine you'd be adding it to both bills, and so that would create a issue for a conference committee, because wouldn't be sending the Senate bill back in the same form as as it was sent over.
Okay. Let me ask you this: did anybody in the amendments and the additional members that were offered, did anybody talk about a member that deals with the environment or climate change when it comes to the conversion of commercial properties to residential properties? Is there any interest in figuring out a way to do that in such a way that it lowers energy costs and provides some opportunities to address climate change, or was that never thought of or not thought of at all in any of these members?
I don't think that was ever discussed in, from what I remember, and I've talked to a Senate chair, and I don't remember that discussion either.
I think I'm going to put in a bill that says every single bill that we pass from now on, every single one is going to have to start considering these obvious things that we should be talking about. I know that the builders might not like that, Mr. Enton, but I really don't care.
And that would be a bill for another year, Mr. DFH.
In the meantime, I'm going to be nice and let it go.
Be nice.
I'm so shocked that you don't care, really.
I care about the environment and I care about the world. I don't care about the builders' price margins.
We're live streaming that, DFH. Delegate Healy.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to know if the amendments that were put on in the Senate resolved any issues that might have been outstanding from any of the groups that wait.
Let me double check. I don't believe that there was any opposition testimony on these bills, but
I know that but there were some that wanted amendments. There was like favorable with amendments. Did they all get their amendments that they wanted?
So looking through here, favorable with amendment. Yes, the architect's amendment was put on, so there's a member of, let me just look at the exact language. My apology. I'm sorry, I know it's architecture. Yes, one architecture professional with expertise in adaptive reuse and affordable housing. So the AIA amendment was incorporated. And the rest of the amendment outside of that was a sponsor amendment. And based on the testimony from the sponsor, there had been several groups that had approached the sponsors and had requested.
Okay, so as far as we know, nobody's come to us with any other additional needs.
That is correct.
Delegate Fraser Hidalgo.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So let me make sure, Matthew, that I'm presenting this correctly. You indicated that the Senate bill already has these amendments on it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. All right. So what I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is that I'm going to reverse what I just said. We're going to discuss the Senate bill because the Senate bill already has its amendments on it. So what I'm going to do is look at, first off, passing the Senate bill and then going back to the House bill and amending the House bill to match the Senate bill. But first, before I do that, I'm going to go to Delegate Terrassa.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that Mako is still on there, right?
I think they are. I think they are.
Nobody was pulled off of the bill.
Nobody was pulled off. Okay, so I saw them on at least the version that I have, which I'm not sure is the latest version, but I guess that's the only local government representation, or because I just worry about the impact of this. I think it's a really important idea, and I like that the use that I like the concept, but I'm just concerned about its impact on local zoning authority.
So both Mako and MML are one member of Mako and one member of MML would participate on this work group.
And then the group would just make recommendations, or they don't have any.
They don't have the authority to create any sort of they can suggest legislation, make recommendations as to how to go about this. They'll also look at opportunities that might already exist in terms of financing this type of housing, various programs that can be leveraged.
And this is a work group. So just like every other work group, after the work group completes its mission, then it does make recommendations. It's a work group.
Okay.
Delegate Lehman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was thinking along the same lines of Delegate Terrassa about local input. I would suspect what would end up coming out of this, if there are recommendations for state legislation because of the zoning and land use component, I would assume it would have to be enabling legislation, because the counties do land use so differently. But I agree with Delegate Fraser Hidalgo. It's unfortunate that someone did not think about, climate related issues and building retrofit, because this would absolutely be an ideal time to do it. Maybe there could be some uncodified language possibly added to the bill about that being part of the work group's charge. My question is going back to the Senate amendment. So how big does this work group end up being, membership wise? Matt, can you tell us
I'd have to do a quick count. So just 1 second. Sorry, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. By hoping my count is correct, it looks to be 19 members for the work group.
Wow. Okay.
When all the industries are factored together. There are some groups that would get 2 members. So the Senate has 2 members representing it, the House has 2 members representing it, and then everybody else is a single party representing it.
Is there any sort of, I don't know, clever way, for lack of a better term, to get at David's issue with, like, to say if there are architectural representatives that somebody would have to have, expertise in green building standards or something like that? Is there any way to do that without an actual amendment? Or? Well,
so to that point, any amendment is, of course, going to create a conference committee issue at this point. I will note that the members, the various industry groups that are representative, are jointly appointed by the presiding officers of the General Assembly. And let me just look at the charge of the work group. Study the feasibility and limitations of converting vacant underutilized spaces. Identify sources of state funds available to developers interested. Identify and study any programs that are developed by other states. So I guess I would note that page 3, lines 5 to 6, identify and study any programs developed by other states for the purpose of converting vacant commercial spaces into affordable housing, may, in the global review of those programs, they exist. I'm not sure what they might be. You could look and see how other states have factored that issue in. Of course, the language here would set the general goals of the work group. That could always be, I would imagine that could be something the work group could look into in its own capacity.
Okay. Yep.
Certainly, yeah.
Okay. All right.
And they would have, by looking at the charge of the work group, they would have the ability to choose the expertise of those individual groups. Okay. And again, this is just a work group.
Right.
Big recommendation that comes back to us.
And that's what I was going to say, is that when the recommendations come back to the General Assembly, especially if David puts in a bill between now and when that recommendation comes back that says we need to consider these environmental issues in any legislation that comes forward that like this, then before we even have the legislation, it'll be part without actually changing this bill.
So last quick question is, what is that reporting deadline again, Matt?
The reporting deadline is on or before November 30th, 2021. Okay. And then the work group itself is actually still active through June 30th, 2022.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I suppose it would be active through well, I don't suppose, it would be active in effect through the 2022 session in case it were discovered that there was a need for further review on a specific issue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I'm done. Thanks.
Thank you. To my earlier comment about putting my own bill, I was being a little bit facetious because I don't think I can get a bill passed like that, even though we should, in my opinion, get a bill passed like that. And even though we should consider this, I don't think I could get enough people to vote for the bill. So as much as I'd like to, Delegate Healy.
I just got carried away with myself.
Yeah, I wish I could, which is why I bring it up now, because, if there's going to be recommendations that are made, quite frankly, those recommendations should include this as a big piece. I don't want to like mess up somebody's bill in the 11th hour, given that, this is the first time we've heard the bill, but I have to say, for the record, it does bother me that there isn't somebody talking about this particular issue. We're talking about converting into housing stock, commercial, which are two completely different kinds of standards. Okay, I said my piece. I'm gonna let it go.
I think that we still, if that's something that is, still, like, for lack of a better term, stuck in your craw, there is an opportunity, I think, after the work group makes a recommendation, to put that into the final product. You know what I mean? After it comes out of the recommendation. Delegate Healy.
Yeah, and not only that, considering the timeline of the work group, it's quite possible to have a bill in next session to add something to the mandate of this work group.
Right.
Because they won't be finished until June or so.
Right.
Well,
So-
just to
Go ahead.
the report that the work group is required to produce is due on or before November 30th, 2021. The work group itself, though, would remain
Oh, okay.
Continue to
in
function.
effect in law.
So go ahead. So the Senate bill has all of the amendments already on it. Is that correct, Matthew?
That is correct.
Can I get a motion to approve Senate Bill 764,
So moved.
please? Is there a
Second.
second? Any additional discussion on Senate Bill 764? Seeing none, all those in favor of Senate Bill 764, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Any abstentions? Seeing none, Senate Bill 764 is getting a favorable recommendation from this subcommittee. Now, I would like someone to make, go ahead, Matt. Go ahead, Delegate Healy.
I was just thinking that maybe one thing we could do with this is to try to get something into legislative intent, to have some discussion when it's presented on the floor, saying that, that the subcommittee, and maybe talk about it in the committee as well, that, we're supporting this now, but going forward, we would like to see in the future that this be considered. And so then it's in the public record.
Got it. So I'm going to make a motion. I appreciate that. Make a motion to amend House Bill 877 to be in the same posture as Senate Bill 764. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the amended version of 877? Now, let me back up. All in favor of the amendments for 877, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed, say no. Abstentions? The amendments have been passed. All in favor of the amended version of HB 877, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, abstentions? HB 877 as amended is approved. Ladies and gentlemen, as the famous chair of the Housing and Real Property Subcommittee would say, you are free to go.
Thank you, Marvin. Bye-bye.
Bye.